With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 350 plus undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
What's the deal? It's your boy, Mr. Will. You are now tuned in to Wilson Block of Thou Wow, okay? And look, man, I want to talk about, how I leveraged a bench warrant to prove fraud upon the court, okay? Now, historically, they tell us that, it's not what you know, it's what you can prove, okay? I've debunked that theory completely in People versus Michael Taylor. Okay, it's clearly not what I can prove because I've already proven the fraud. Okay, but the Superior Court of California, County of Los Angeles, is actively concealing these violations of their own judicial orders by their own officers of the court. Okay, at my expense, completely criminal. Okay. And it's the irony of the fact that these are the people who are sending people to prison, okay? Imparting justice. When it's them, they they don't apply the same scale, okay? And they're Americans too. They're not above the law, okay? They're public officials. Okay, over here, managing public money. Okay, that's not a privilege. I mean, that is a privilege. It's not a right. Okay, and so, I want to just talk about, the breakdown in communication I had with Vernon Patterson that led to, the brilliance, okay, of me actually inheriting a bench warrant. Now, to give you some context, okay, the People versus Michael Taylor, I've been fighting this case since November 18th, 2021, okay? And, I've participated despite them trampling over my rights court date after court date, okay? And despite me having all the evidence, they still put me back in jail. They still committed me to the hospital. They still gave me forced medication. It was like, why am I even participating as if it's an adversarial proceeding if it's not adversarial? Okay? They're weaponizing formality and procedure, okay, just to give the appearance of legality. No, we're piercing that, okay? But so when I got out the hospital and everything, and I told them that, I told my lawyer that, hey, were you able to locate the court order for that, hospitalization I just came out of? And he was like, no, I wasn't able to find it. And just bad. Okay, it's just a bad situation. My own lawyer out to get me, not even hiding it. Doesn't want to represent my interests, but won't withdraw. It's just like, he's a clear proxy for the judge. Okay, the judges think that they have a right to be like giving direction to my attorney. Okay, you can't do that. Okay, and we know they're operating under some super sadistic code of silence, and their allegiance is not to the Constitution, it's to their fraternity. Okay, and it's clear as day. Okay, when you can clearly identify that Catholicism is a false religion. Okay, um and not be subject to the trivial rhetoric. Okay, then surely you can see through, what I'm saying, the felonious acts of the people like, Judge Ronald Owen Kay. Okay, anyway, so basically, my lawyer told me no court order exists, and I'm just compelled. I told him, I said, look, no court order existed for that assessment, and it sent me to the hospital, only for it to be true that no court order ever existed. What do you call that, Mr. Patterson? I call it a non-issue. The court told you the same thing the last time we were in court. So you basically just told me in writing, okay, that the court knows there was no court order for the assessment that sent me to the state hospital. Okay, that's criminal. What are you talking about? We're talking about forced antipsychotic medication. Okay, involuntary, complete, no due process, no hearing, no, nothing. Just, a complete ambush. Okay, and that's what I'm noticing about this whole ordeal is that, they're charging me and then they're ignoring the fact that I was even attacked on camera. And the common denominator here is they keep trying to fucking ambush me. Okay? Like when the incident in question happened, okay, I'm literally being ambushed by two men, okay, simultaneously on both sides of my car. Okay? Now I just gave you some morning coffee, damn it. I didn't even have a chance to put the damn car in park before these people just, completely just attacked me. Okay? And they hit me with the charges exclusively, violating equal whatever, okay? And, they procedurally ambush me. Like they just suppress me and just drag me along. I'm so over it. Anyway, I told Mr. Patterson, look, man, I'm not participating anymore until the court can verify its authority. Okay, because if there's no court order for the assessment that sent me to the hospital, then it's void. Okay, not merely voidable. Okay, and I don't need a judge to tell me, okay, or to tell the court or to tell anybody. Okay, I don't need it. Okay, that the court order was violated or it wasn't violated. If it was violated, it was violated. Okay, I don't, especially if you're violating a court order and then acting upon that particular violation. So yeah, I told Mr. Patterson, look, if until you can verify the court order for the assessment that sent me to the hospital, I'm afraid this isn't a real proceeding. Okay, it's unconstitutional. Okay, and they know it. And they absolutely know it, and they're doing what they do anyway because of some systemic issue we got with the fraternity. But anyway, so Mr. Patterson, you know what I'm saying, fully aware and made constructively aware of, the fraud that's been committed, okay? And he's known it before I was even put back in custody and all that, okay? Very, very bad man. Vernon Patterson is a very bad man, okay? And our community, society, deserves to be protected from people like him, okay? Who prejudices the cases of his own clients for the court. Okay, that is just not okay. Okay, something is wrong with that man, okay? And he really needs some help. Anyway, he refused to assert these facts on my behalf when my court date came around. Okay? And, it resulted in, this unlawful bench warrant going out. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's I just can't get a fair shake. They're trying to force me to trial without without it being fair, and all Mr. Patterson cares about is what the judge is telling him to do on behalf of me. And of course they are. There's no way that this, bonehead attorney, okay, is merely just, making, invoking his own interests for the sake of whatever interest he has. No, he's being directed, okay? He's being directed. I'm not being directed, and I still outmaneuver this dog ass. Okay, but understand that he left me a voicemail telling me that, The case has been transferred to Department C because Department F is dark. Oh, not according to the minute order. The minute order says Department F. This, Shannon Clausen of the Superior Court of California sent me an email with an official statement with the Superior Court seal and everything, okay, stating that the bench warrant was issued in Department F. So I have record of my attorney, Vernon Patterson, telling me that, my proceedings were, transferred to another court when the court order itself, okay, says otherwise, okay? And, Mr. Patterson is, again, it's an inconvenience for him that I've been able to perceive this discrepancy. And he's just like, whatever, it doesn't matter and all this type of stuff. But it absolutely does matter because, see, the court doesn't really appreciate that I know that my rights belong to me, right? And when you know that your rights belong to you, okay, it shifts the entire dynamic. Then you start to really understand your power, okay, and what you have a legal right to. Right? And these are just bad faith actors that are just, abusing their own power. They're criminals because they're violating their own state laws. Okay? And that's not okay. You know what I'm saying? Like, we should not have judges, doctors, and lawyers and clerks all together committing criminal activity in the course of any prosecution. What's wrong with these people? Okay, truly incompetent people. Okay, and this is what happens when you just have like prejudice in you, right? That's so deep there's no explanation for it. It's just what it is. And truly, whoever are directing these people, it's coming from a very dark place somewhere. Very dark. Okay, this is the most evil thing I've ever experienced in my 35 years. Okay, look, there's gonna be a reckoning for them. Okay, they're not getting away. They think they are. Okay, right now my rights are suspended unlawfully, and it's all thanks to a bunch of prejudiced Latinos, prejudiced Catholics, right, who are simply upset that, like, they're so upset at me for criticizing Catholicism, but I mean, clearly you guys had a problem with me already, destroying evidence before my prelim, okay, not giving me a chance to contest that, right, not giving me a chance to challenge the application of law, right. I was attacked, but I'm being charged exclusively. So I think there's an uneven application of law, and I absolutely want to challenge the legal grounds of that. Okay, and the public defenders knew that the judge has absolute discretion over legal matters. Okay, and they didn't want that on the record because the prosecutor was already relying on speculation. So the last thing that they needed was a legitimate constitutional right violation to be reflected on the court record. Okay? And anyway, May 23rd, he tells me that, well, first of all, according to the minute order on May 23rd, 2025, it says Department F, and it says 8:30 a.m. Okay? Vernon Patterson didn't leave me a voicemail directing me to Department C until about 9:40 something. Okay, 9:50 or something like that. Okay, and then by 10:30 or so, he finally texts me and says, I have a warrant issued for my arrest. And of course it is, because you didn't mention the jurisdictional defect, bro. You already knew. Okay, no court order existed for the assessment that sent me to the hospital. We established it, and you didn't assert that challenge to the court. So Vernon Patterson, is just like just a terrible person, right? Who, like, even when he's figured out, he still, we're talking about a grown ass man here, okay, who was he became a licensed member of the bar when I was only 3 years old. And like, here this guy is now, 32 years in the game, no supervisory position, uses Google Voice for his law practice, doesn't have a website, doesn't have an office. All he has is a personal mailbox. Somebody get this guy out of here. Who is this guy? You feel me? Who is this guy? Okay? He does not belong in society. Okay? He belongs in jail. Okay? Because everything about what he's doing is fraudulent. He thought he was like invisible all these years. That's what he thought. You know what? Come to think of it, even the state bar themselves, yeah, they know Vernon Patterson fairly well. And you know what? It's funny. Because the fruit don't fall far, fam. Let me tell you, the state bar, look, the state bar, what a fucking joke. What a joke. Listen, I'm going to really save this for another episode, but I'm going to just speak on it while I'm talking about it. The state bar has just implicated the entire fraternal structure as a structure, fam. Okay? I'm talking about not just the legal profession. Okay? I'm talking about the fraternity as we know it. Okay? It's the fraternity as, this 501c3, the so-called 501. Yeah, no. Okay? There's got to be some serious changes. And, I have a clear path. I have a clear vision. And, I'm not going to spoil that right now. But, yeah, I'm going to give the state bar their own episode. They deserve a scrutiny, a very special scrutiny. Because basically, they are, obstructing, like, my complaints. Like, I've already submitted a complaint that, the court order was violated. I've already submitted a complaint that, Vernon Patterson has constructively abandoned me. And, they just, they won't escalate it, right? And they're not the judges, man. Let the Supreme Court, let the California Supreme Court, okay, hear it. Okay, they have the discretion here, not you. You guys are not adjudicators. Okay, the trial counsel are not adjudicators, right? Those who just like receive the complaint, fam, like stop obstructing. Okay, they're trying to like make sure that the judges get away with their misconduct before I'm allowed any type of redress. And even then, they're still gonna just like, deflect, And I'm not tolerating that shit, man. I'm not tolerating it, homie. I'm gonna tell you something, man. These people playing with some serious fire, homie. Serious fire, bro. And they think it's a game out here, but I'm gonna tell you something. They only hurting themselves. Okay? They're the ones sitting on the fraudulent legal record. Okay, they're the what they did, I didn't do. Okay, I didn't tell them to do it. Anyway. So basically what I'm saying is, on May 23rd, I inherited a bench warrant. And then I told Vernon Patterson, hey, a lot of little back and forth, but it just came down to, I hit him with the like, hey, let's reason. Show me proof of that court order and I'll turn myself in today. And he says, stop texting me. Right. Hitting this nigga with a straight checkmate question. No frills, nigga. Just straight, just to the point. Like, look, there's nothing magical about what I'm doing. All it is just sticking to the script, staying principled, and that's it. That's it. And faith, being faithful. You know what I'm saying? So the bench warrant goes out, and Mr. Patterson doesn't want me to text him no more, and like, anyway, by the 28th of May, right, warrant was active for about 5 days. Mr. Patterson emails me the court order that I've been requesting the whole time. Okay? Which is just, it was brilliant. Okay? I said, hey, let's reason. Show me proof of the court order and I'll turn myself in today. I already knew I wasn't going to turn myself in because I already knew there was no court order. Okay? How was I able to presume so tough that there was no court order? Because I didn't remember the hearing. So if there was a court order, surely it must have been like ex parte and under seal or something, because I surely didn't know about it at all. Okay. But by him revealing it, okay, he actually corroborated my claims of fraud upon the court. And it's just so, it's like, it's either a testament to my brilliance or a testament to his incompetence. Because if you're already refusing to assert facts on my behalf, you already got me sent to a hospital, you already got me on forced medication, you're defending that outcome, okay? Why would you even care at that point that I have a warrant for my arrest, okay? For you to have sent me the smoking gun, like the critical piece of fraud that just makes it just anchors it, and he implicated Judge Clover and Daroka Bell, right? And it goes all the way up to Judge Sergio Tapia and Ocampo and all these weirdos, David Slayton and all these weirdos, man. These straight weirdos, right? Who think all they have to do is make an appearance and give appearance. It's like, look, check this out, fam. Check this out. I'm going to the grave with the truth, bro. So to just no, bro, no. We're gonna air it out, okay, and we're gonna hold people accountable, like they've never been held accountable before, okay, and we're just allowing, I'm just allowing, God's providence to have its way and to just let things play out, not be haste, but just be diligent. And, this is something that requires some very serious attention. It's a serious constitutional crisis, as I've been denied redress across all 3 levels of government. Okay? Like, I just, anyway, man. I managed to leverage inheriting a bench warrant, okay, to compel the revelation, okay, of suppressed exculpatory evidence by my own attorney. Wow. You got to think, I was requesting this court order before they remanded me. This court order never existed, and I was right. So like, even though he called me and was like, you say that there was no court order, but there was a court order. I'm like, no, it wasn't, bro. You're lying. I'm like, send it to me. And then he sends it to me, and he's acting like I'm not supposed to be able to read or something. I read the damn court order, and it proves that the assessment that sent me to the hospital violated that court order's scope of authority. Okay, and it breached confidentiality and protected health information, and I was just all type of right violation. I don't got time to name this shit, bro. We talking about like, nigga couldn't vote last year. Like, I would have been able to vote. I couldn't vote because no court order, but I was still in the hospital. Like, no, I deserve to get, I deserve some equal justice here, man, even at their own expense, because these are decisions they made, not me, again, So it was brilliant because it was high risk. Don't get me wrong, okay? It was absolutely high risk, and I'm still dealing with the effects as we speak. But make no mistake, it was highly strategic and effective, okay? And Vernon Patterson is one embarrassed man, okay? Like, even I can see just through the little peeps here and there that he's slowly losing everything. His life is falling apart, okay? His house burned down in the Eaton fires. He was more or less forced to represent Michael Taylor, which, you know, sucks for him. And, you know, now he implicated the entire court, and like it's just not looking good for this man, you know. And that's why I gotta just maintain a neutral heart about it, because he's gonna get, you know, he's gonna have to lay in his bed that he made, you know. But anyway, it's your boy Mr. Will. That's the deal. I know I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I just really wanted to take time to, you know, make sure that, you know, my thoughts are, you know, expressed, okay, and my ideas, and, you know, I can withstand any scrutiny to my claims. The court cannot. Okay, Vernon Patterson cannot withstand any scrutiny, not under proper review. None of these judges can, none of the doctors can, none of the mental health can, you know, none of the clerks can, you know, and, you know, to be honest, quite a few people, quite a few civilians, you know. And, you know, I'm not going to further speculate. I'm just going to say that, look, I inherited a bench warrant in order to compel a critical piece of information, evidence that corroborated my initial claims, okay, which were 100% credible, okay. Ask me how. It's your boy, Mr. Will. That's the deal. Thank you for tuning in, man. And until next time, I'm out.